Hello, everybody. Welcome to Q&A with A&V. It's July 28th. I'm Vincent Racaniello, and with me from New York, Amy Rosenfeld.
Hello, Vincent. How are we today?
I spent a productive day here in the basement.
Excellent. It's always good to have a productive day.
We already have a thumbs down, and we haven't even begun.
How do we have a thumbs down already?
It's the internet. What are you going to do?
I don't know.
So Amy and I were just chatting. We have a little 10 minutes before we start chatting. And she often complains that people complain about her. And then someone told her today, everything you've said has been right.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, I love the people who write in who say, I'm not a good teacher. I'm an elitist, blah, blah, blah. And I just want to be like, well, let's see how you do. You answer the questions and then I'll judge you and we'll see how it goes. Because I'm not thinking it's going to go well in your direction. But, what do I know? John Campbell gave the thumbs down, laugh out loud. Yeah, it's all fine.
Yeah, I don't think he did, but fine if he did. I often
really
give him,
care.
I don't give him thumbs down, but I do criticize him. But a lot of people write, not a lot, a few people write and complain about Amy, and I tell her, forget it. You have things to say. Don't worry about what people say. There's always a naysayer, right?
Yeah, there's always somebody who has something to complain about, that I'm dismissive or something or other, and I'm elitist and blah, blah, blah.
I wrote back to one person and said, I've been working with Amy for 20 years. Just get used to it.
Well, what's the problem? I mean, I don't want to waste a lot of time. I'm not a time waster. I'm not a small talker. And I'm just going to tell you the truth. And this is it. And it's sometimes hard to hear. And then the truth of the matter is how much do I read? And I don't just read on our topic, right?
You read on everything.
Right. So,
look, people say you can't teach. Don't worry about it. You're knowledgeable. Okay. You know things. That's what we want here. Right?
Exactly. And just because you don't necessarily see the analogy right away doesn't mean it's not there. Most of the time you have to spend at least another, 2 hours thinking about what I said.
Did I show the latest pictures of the painted
last
room?
Week.
I think I did.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, I did. All right,
you want to tell them how you bought how we spent $20,000 buying furniture?
No, I don't. But I do want to say. But I do want to say.
That took care of that.
I do want to say that I need some help. There's this web page that has information on it that I want to copy. I can't copy it. I can't save it as anything. It's a link you click and a page pops up, and I want to copy lots and lots of data. So someone tell me how to scrape it. Some of you IT people must know how to scrape this page. It looks like it's a pop-up that comes out of the main page. Okay, so help me out there.
Yes, and then after we scrape it, it's time to get the publicist and the marketer. And so
we are back in the pandemic big time, folks. Of course, here in the U.S. The rest of the world has always been in the pandemic. But as I said earlier today, the pandemic of the voluntarily unvaccinated. Because I don't want to blame kids because they have no choice in the matter, right?
But many of them don't, yeah.
Many people are not getting vaccinated, and that's driving circulation. And as a consequence, they're telling us we have to get masked again. Although Amy reminded me that when CDC said no more masks back in April, we didn't really like that. We didn't think it was a good idea.
Nope. Thought it was hasty.
Okay, another study out of Israel. So I just have issues with studies out of Israel in general because I want to see the data. I don't want to see a news report. Okay, 1,500 healthcare workers, 39 post-vaccine infections. Okay, so what? Okay, then 7 cases had debilitating symptoms. What is a debilitating symptom? Is that a headache? If it is, I'm not concerned about that. That's the problem with journalism, if that's what this is. So the key is nobody died, and that's what the vaccines do.
Well,
Thoughts, Amy?
the problem is debilitating symptoms. It's subjective. It's
Yep.
not
Yes.
journalism. It's subjective. So what I think is debilitating and what you think is debilitating are two very, very different things. Because I came here on a broken foot.
Okay,
Did
a
I
couple of
not?
people. Yeah, you did. Amy's foot is broken, and it's been broken for years, and she still works on it. That's right. Yeah, I know. What's debilitating to one person is not to another. So some people are
So,
telling me take a screen capture. No, it doesn't work because it's a scrolling pop-up window. It scrolls for a long time, and you cannot screen cap more than what's visible. I don't know a lot, but I know that much. You need some code to scrape it, folks. Jeez.
can't we just type in scraping code into Google? And can it just vomit out
Well, people offer to
some
help me, so I'm
Java?
asking for some help. And I can't send you the URL because it's a password protected thing and you can't have it. But if
Well,
you
why
want,
can't we just Google? Why can't you just write in the toolbar scraping code Java and have
I
it
don't want to
vomit
write
out
code.
something?
I don't have time for that. I have enough to do. I did 4 TWIVs this week, Amy.
That's your job now, Vincent. Stop complaining. It's less
No,
than
I'm
one
just
a
saying.
day,
I
and
love doing it,
yeah. So
but I don't
then,
want to. I don't want to write
but
code.
that's your job.
We
That's
have
your
our
job
two.
now.
We have
So
our
say la
two
vie.
moderators tonight. We have Frank. Welcome back, Frank, and Vanity Nutrition is back. Welcome
That's
back.
great.
So we thank you in advance for your help in keeping this sane. What pods do I listen to? Yeah, Amy just told me about this Andy Slavitt interview of Albert Bourla. No, you're not going to need a third jab. Bourla's selling the jab. That's why he's saying that. What do you think of that? Amy, your thoughts?
I don't really care what his motivation is. Scientifically, it's not correct. I mean, you make a bolus, if you have natural infection, you make a bolus of antibodies, and your argument for the gradual decrease is you don't want a lot of antibodies at all the time. So you get a vaccine, you make a bolus of antibodies. Now all of a sudden you want a ton of antibodies? That doesn't make any sense. So it's natural waning. Let me know let me know about memory B cells. If there's no memory B cells, then maybe I'll agree, but do some work.
Yeah, I just think this third jab business is it's frustrating. It shows a lack of understanding of what's going on.
Well,
The
it shows a
antibodies
lack
don't
of
matter.
understanding. Well, it shows a lack of understanding of the immune response in general and the fundamentals of the immune response. It shows a lack of understanding of the role of T cells, as the paper that I sent you that I presume will be on TWIV on Friday or next week, because you have Karen on Friday.
Yeah.
You will discuss, and it will tell you
next
that
week.
the T cells are the CD8s. It's all about the CD8s, and then you could go confirm it with Alexandra Seti.
So what people are doing, they're looking at reducing antibody titers and thinking this is a problem, but it's not. As Amy said, it's the T cells that protect you. Come on, folks.
Well, it's the same, but what I'm saying is it's mimicking natural infection, right? You get a bolus
Sure.
of antibodies and they naturally wane. You get a bolus of antibodies when you get a vaccine and they naturally wane. Call me after we can process that. Then we can discuss.
That is why shortly after vaccination, they did some studies to see if people got infected as opposed to just not getting disease. And many of them didn't, but that was completely abnormal because the antibody levels were too high. It was too close to vaccination. Now they're doing it, and the numbers are lower, and people are freaking out, but that's the way it should be.
Test people who are vaccinated for infection. You should never test people who are vaccinated for infection. It's a waste of time.
Yes, the anti-vaxxers in the U.S. are messing things up. 50%.
Well, what does she want us to do? Get a crop duster and discard them all?
No, I mean, you have to do one at a time, but it's what's screwing up this whole situation, because if everyone were vaccinated, then we would have no issues.
Yeah,
and we could move on to other viruses, and people could live. They wouldn't die. Do aborted infections count as immune boosters? You mean like
I don't know
asymptomatic?
what is an aborted infection? I don't know what that means.
One that goes a little bit and then stops? So according to Fouchier, when you're vaccinated, you get infected, you have a low-level infection for a short time, and that gives your immune system a boost. So maybe that's what After Babel is talking about, right?
Yeah. I mean, as I said, aborted sounds like you start and then you stop, but I don't know where you stopped.
Yep.
I don't understand the word aborted in that context. That's my problem.
So Sandy loves your crop duster idea.
I'm not getting a crop duster and poisoning people, but
Why shouldn't people who have recovered from COVID be considered immune? They've got antibodies.
they're
Getting
considered
COVID
somewhat
twice
immune.
Yeah, they're considered. Why do you think they're not considered immune? Because we tell them to get vaccinated?
So you want it to boost.
You get a great boost when you've recovered and you get one vaccine dose. It's really good. Not just antibodies, Debs. T cells, that's what you want as well.
Mm-hmm.
Sadly, things aren't that great in Miami. I'm sorry. Yes, Florida's having a rough time because a lot of unvaccinated people.
Well, he also removed he took away all of the, I guess, preventative measures.
Yep.
With the idea that he was boosting the economy.
Yeah. The economy
I don't know.
Of undertakers.
Well, the thing is do you really want to go out to dinner or to a concert or whatever you can do in Florida now? I mean, I don't know. It's the same argument I had with a friend of mine at the very beginning.
All right, here's one for you, Amy. Please discuss how change to incubation period and ramp up to infection is changing the testing regime. Maybe that it makes testing less useful. Daniel seems to be leaning that way.
I don't think Daniel's ever leaned that testing is less useful.
No, not at all. I
think Daniel's leaning towards the other way.
More testing.
Yeah, exactly. More testing. More and more testing. Which makes the idea that we don't have a lick of stick in a rapid test that is really, really inexpensive, more and more glaring, and more disturbing, and why I'm not a big fan of some people.
But he did mention on the last clinical report, this study out of China, where it looks like when you're first positive by PCR, it looks like an accelerated course where you're already infectious, but he was skeptical of that.
Yeah, I'm skeptical of it. I mean, so they took the patient 0 and then they did a contact tracing of their immediate contacts. And they don't say anything like that he was their sole contact, right? Or their sole exposure. And then they tested those people every day and they say, oh, look, in 4 days, you now see an increase and you see them all turning positive. But you didn't go really long enough back. So you just did his immediate contacts and you said he was their only source of exposure. And I don't believe that that's possible. So I think it's a little iffy.
Previously infected plus 1 dose vaccine creates more antibodies than uninfected
T cells.
T cells too. Please don't forget the T cells, folks. They're probably more important in this case than the antibodies. Why? Why, Amy? Why do you get such a big boost after infection in 1 dose versus 2 doses of vaccine in uninfected?
I'm sorry, what? Why do you get...
So if you recover from infection, you get 1 dose of vaccine. You get a more massive immune response than if you were uninfected and it got 2 doses of vaccine.
It depends on when you were infected, right? And the timing of whether or not you're having a memory response and stuff, right?
Yeah.
So probably if you were infected and you have memory B cells and stuff, they're probably, and then you get vaccinated, you're not only getting additional cells, but you're also getting those memory B cells to kick in, right? And whereas if you're uninfected and you have 2 doses in the regimen that we're doing it, you have no time for the memory B cell response. It takes like months.
Any variants to displace Delta? Yeah, you bet. There are a whole
I don't
bunch
know.
out there.
Do you have a crystal ball? Are they going to be Omega and Mu? And I don't know. My ball is broken.
Yeah, there will be more variants. Whether they displace, who knows? We'll see. All right, so discuss how testing once a week is inadequate. I think you ought to be. It depends where you are and how many cases there are, right? For example,
No.
if there are no cases in your area, you still should test every day?
Depends on what your job is.
Yes, exactly. So if you stay home, you don't need to be tested that often, right?
Right. Like my parents, they quarantined and they lived in their house. My mom gardened, her husband read. They had curbside delivery of groceries, and they waved to the gardener when he cut the grass. I mean, they're not going anywhere, and you weren't allowed in their house. No point in wasting a test on them. Now, you and I, you kind of live in the same kind of environment. It's not that, your house is far away from other people, but you go places, and your kids go in and out.
Yeah, my kids in particular. And I go into New York a couple days a week, right?
Right.
I mask all the time, though. I stay away from people. I continue to do this. I've never stopped masking. I once went into a store and they said masks not needed. I took it off for 2 minutes and I felt weird, so I put it back on.
Yeah.
So Rich Condit's daughter is in England doing a job, and she gets tested every day. They give her 7-day antigen kits at a time, and I think
because you don't
that's
know
what you need.
Right.
Yeah.
So this once a week is inadequate. So I got exposed on Sunday. You test every day, every week. You test me on Monday. It's never going to pick it up for another week. That's why it's inadequate.
Why is half of Staten Island unvaccinated? What's the problem?
I don't know. Why don't you call them?
Who would just pick a phone number out of the book?
Sure. Randomly pick some phone number. Well, you have a 50-50 chance at this rate. You have a 50-50 chance. Call somebody on Staten Island and ask them why they've refused to vaccinate.
I have a friend. I'm going to ask him if he's vaccinated.
Is this a Laco?
Yeah, but he's a scientist, so he probably is vaccinated, right?
Yeah, I'm going no. Okay. Although we could ask Doris to go talk to him. That would be really exciting. Especially if he is unvaccinated. That would be really exciting.
If missing the muscle is an issue with the thrombocytopenia, would it help to inject into larger muscles like the thigh? I'm going to make a comment that's going to piss people off. Some people, their head is the biggest muscle, right?
What head? It's like mostly fat and water and bone.
That's a joke.
Actually, your biggest muscle is your gluteus maximus, I think.
I mean, for rapid immunization in line, you can't be dropping your pants. No good.
Yeah, but I think I think actually your tush is your largest muscle, while your tongue, while your tongue is supposed to be the strongest muscle. But
I don't think that missing the muscle is an issue. I think there are other things going on there. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know.
Have I thought about bringing an epidemiologist to talk about Delta variant transmissibility? I have, and I'm not doing it because they are the ones that messed this all up by calling it more transmissible.
Well, they had They had a little help from some basic scientists that we know.
I mean, the problem is with the EPIs, they don't look at it from a virological viewpoint. That's what we are doing.
Well, some of the people who were supposed to look from it from a virus viewpoint also screwed it up before the epidemiologists, and you know who I'm talking about.
So I'll wait until it's clear, and then I'll ask one on and say, "Why did you mess up?" Well, no, I
That's a
don't
good
do that.
plan.
I don't
I
do
was going to
that.
say you don't have you softball them. You
I'm
don't
just
have
saying
these
it between friends
conversations.
here. I'm just saying it between friends. Is
It's
it true
fine.
New York City is giving $100 for a
Yep.
jab?
Yep.
Okay, that's good. I'm not
I'm
sure
all
people.
for. The truth of the matter is we give away money for we give somebody like millions of dollars to eat 76 hot dogs dunked into water in like 10 minutes at Coney Island. You really have a problem with $100 getting a vaccine? Seriously?
I don't have a problem with it. I think it's fine. All right, my student tested positive. We see each other with mask and distance indoors. Chance of getting COVID to my kids. I have J&J. I'm masking at home just in case.
It's
Well,
probably nothing.
it's fine. If you're masking with your student and you're masking at home, you're good.
Yeah,
Just
but I
stay.
think she wants to get rid of the mask at home and not have a mask around her kids. She's worried that she would give it to her kids, but she's vaccinated and she wears a mask, and the probability of those two things is probably what, 1 in 1 million, 10 million.
Yeah. Novavax.
Plus the girl who was positive she was vaccinated, so the probability that she's even shedding a significant amount of virus for a long period of time is probably nothing.
Oh, yes, she's vaccinated. No worries.
Yeah, exactly.
I think you're good. I mean, the CDC thinks that, should I say this, the Delta replication in both vaccinated and unvaccinated people reaches the same high levels in the nasopharynx. I fail to believe that. And so, Marlene, if that were the case, then you should continue to mask. But I just don't think it's correct.
Well, the thing is, I mean, the girl was vaccinated, and that's why you don't test vaccinated people, is because they get infected, and as Fouché said, you replicate a bit, and then you stop, and it doesn't go anywhere. It's like a dead end. So they shouldn't have even tested her. It's like kind of silly, unless she like was so sick that she had symptoms, but the woman didn't say she had any symptoms.
Novavax MIA. Any idea why? I don't know. But Daniel said the other day, we're waiting for the data. The phase 3 data should be here any day.
Yeah, I've been hearing that for months. At this rate, my pizza's cold.
Have you heard of Discord Vincent? It's a special new server devoted to viruses. I've heard of Discord. In fact, I started a Microbe TV Discord, and the goal is to make a community of us to discuss. I haven't got it going yet.
Well, well, when we have an intern.
Do you believe that once FDA licenses the vaccines, that they will be mandated in more places?
Absolutely. That's basically what Eric Topol told Andy Slavitt on last week, which I believe one of your co-hosts, when I said that, said I was wrong, and I believe that he was wrong.
What did he say? That you couldn't mandate even a
he said that
vaccine?
He said that that basically full approval did not allow for mandates and changing of the laws or something or other. And I said, yes, it does. That's the whole point. That's why people, yeah. Dev disagreed, and he was wrong.
So you have to be careful when you disagree with Amy, because she carefully thinks about things. I know this, because I've disagreed many times, and I end up often...
Yes, with egg on your face.
Non-COVID immunovirology. Why doesn't HPV vaccination cure existing disease? So this is correct. They don't recommend the HPV vaccine to people over 45 because you've been already infected and it has marginal benefit at that point. So why does it have marginal benefit? The only thing I can think of is the infection is established and it can't be eradicated. What do you think, Amy?
I think it's a chronic infection that's at low levels and pretty well stealthed, unless you have a wart.
Yes.
So I don't really know what you'd be talking about. And if I remember correctly, it's like when Saul was here trying to grow it. Isn't there something about like it's only like in the top 4 layers of the skin or something?
Well, that's where
Not
it
at the
becomes
bottom.
infectious. Yes, it becomes
Yeah,
infectious in the top 4 layers where there's no immune response.
right.
And in the
So
bottom, even if you go very far down, there are some cells that have just DNA and they're not producing any protein, so they can't be eliminated, though. That's probably part of the problem, right?
yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm not an HPV person and stuff, but I thought that there was something very specific about like how, it went and it like matured through the different 8 layers of the skin, and really like once the keratinocytes were dead, something. But as I said, I'm not really an HPV person, but I just thought that that was part of the problem, and that's part of the reason why our tissue culture systems for the virus suck so much.
We have to get an HPV person onto TWIV to talk about these things.
You can have Ann Gershon, right?
No,
Is she
she's
an
not an
HPV?
HPV. No.
Oh no, she's not. Sorry.
Zoster.
Yeah. Well, another virus that's all worked on.
All right. What proof of recovery will agencies accept when proof of vaccination is required?
What do you mean? What proof of recovery? If you have proof that you vaccinated, just show them the proof that you're vaccinated.
Oh, this person is saying if you've recovered from infection, you should be considered immune. I don't know if that's
Well,
going
you
to be
have a
good enough.
negative test result, right?
Well, you have positive antibody, negative PCR, right?
Yeah, but they don't test for. They aren't doing antibody tests. That's too expensive and too difficult. They're just doing RT-PCR. They're negative. It's
Why
fine.
wouldn't they do some nice
They're not
antigen test? No.
antigen test. Yeah, they're not. An antigen test doesn't tell you that you were infected after you
I'm
stopped
sorry,
making
antibody
viral.
test.
No,
Antibody test. No.
no, no.
But that's what I would do.
Well, you'd have a lot more money than I do.
We have matching shirts. I didn't even realize that. Thank you for pointing that out. Didn't we
Yeah.
wear these last week at some meeting also?
Yes, when we went to visit the incubator and pick out carpet and paint colors.
You know, I only have like 5 shirts, and Amy has 3 sweaters. What are you going to do?
What are you talking about? I have a lot of sweaters, but today it's kind of warm, and sometimes the air conditioning doesn't work.
70-year-old overweight friend is fully vaxxed, still afraid. What are the 2 tests she needs to get to be sure of her immunity?
She just needs one test. Get an antibody test. One test.
Yeah.
I don't know what the 2
One
tests
test.
are.
One test. Okay,
Especially
yes.
considering the fact that if you listen to Daniel in his email episode, he told you that the T cell test is specific only for people who've been infected because it only looks for tetramers against nucleocapsid. So it wouldn't be helpful.
Is there a difference between an asymptomatic post-vaccine infection and an asymptomatic unvaxxed infection in terms of shedding?
You're supposed to shed a lot less after you've been vaccinated.
Yep. Precisely correct. The CDC and others are now advocating masks for the vaccinated in hotspots, but not in other areas. Isn't this just capitulation to the vaccinated, too afraid to trust science?
I don't know. What does capitulation mean?
It's giving into the unvaccinated, right?
Yeah. It's giving in to the anti-vaxxers. Instead of just saying, pull up your big boy pants and stick out your arm, it's coddling of the people who don't want to get vaccinated. It's selfishness. They're the same people who don't mask and don't do stuff. And then when they go to the hospital with like a heart attack, they want the doctors to drop everything and fix them. So
So
selfish.
we're vaccinated. We are not going to get severe disease. We're not going to die. We're okay. Yeah, we have to wear masks to protect people who choose not to be vaccinated. It seems not right.
selfish.
I mean, the kids who are less than 12 who can't be, I fully understand that. But come on, folks, get vaccinated. What's the downside? Give me one good downside. Now, I wanted to click some of these that you see people really like you. One of my favorite Twiv hosts. I love Amy. So, okay.
It's fine. It's fine.
What's the place of monoclonals with Delta? There are certain monoclonals that work fine against Delta. It's
Well,
fine.
you don't really, you should never have given a monoclonal. You should have always given a cocktail.
Yeah, not just one. That's right.
Yeah. Never should
Amy-
have done that.
Amy is great. Amy is an inspiration.
It's cute.
If you not getting complaints, it would be weird. We love you, Amy. Forget the trolls. We love Amy.
It's cute.
We love
All right,
Amy and
moving
her
on.
shoes.
Yeah, my
It's
shoes
enough.
are
You
very
feel
in
better.
for it.
Amy rocks.
I'm just getting, it's 8:30. We got like 19 more minutes. And
No,
then I
you
have
don't
to
need.
go.
You don't need any more shots. You're fine if you've got 2. Oh, good. We'll wear them together. Amy is a genius. Okay. Oh, you have this lady has an Amy Right Amy T-shirt. Oh, that's not that one. What is? Yeah, this one. Sandy
Yeah.
has a Right Amy T-shirt. Okay, let's get
I
to
do
a question.
too. I do too. So where's your fundraiser person?
I don't know. He's probably down the list here, Jeff. Maybe he's watching it later. You know, he's a busy guy raising funds.
Really? He's
Yeah.
raising funds for, he's done something?
I'm speculating. How safe do I
No
feel being fully
speculation. I want to
vaccinated?
see proof.
I feel totally safe. I'm okay. I have
He
no
even
problem.
went out to dinner with people he doesn't know.
When did I do that?
Thursday. We've only you only talked to the guy over the Zoom, right? The Tony and Christina. You only
Oh,
talked
right.
to the guy over Zoom, right?
Yep. Okay. You're going through some comments. Give you the. Now we're getting to the thing that I want. It's not screen cap. Can't do it. Here we go. What's the maximum time that a cell transfected by one of the mRNA vaccines is likely to continue to make spike? What sets the limit?
mRNA stability sets the limit. The maximum time would depend on the stability of the mRNA, really, basically. I don't know how stable the RNA is. Must be days.
I think they might have engineered a stability sequence into the mRNA, right, Amy?
Yeah, they modified it. They modified the nucleotides to be more stable. But I don't know that I've never read a paper about, how long it's stable for. I would assume it's stable for a couple of days, maybe under 7.
Did 1918 influenza become more transmissible or deadly in its second wave? There's some people who think so, but there's absolutely no way of knowing because we have no genomes. So,
But
you never know.
we have one, right?
We have one,
the one
but
that they could reconstructed, but that's
yeah,
it. But when the pandemic started,
Yeah.
I said to my family, it went on for 5 years and there were 3 waves. So if you look at it, we're on like the 4th wave. If you count the Delta as a separate wave. Not a good sign.
Okay.
It's a little history comparison. You should be
yeah, that's
interested
good.
in this history.
I am interested. Are we excited about Novavax? I'm not say excited, but I'd like to
Daniel
see it.
is.
I'd like to see it given EUA, and have another option
Choice.
for sure.
Daniel's very excited about it.
I should try a full page screenshot. Okay, I will try that. Thank you. Maybe it will pick up what's underneath, right? That I can't see. Page source. I could do that. Yeah. I didn't see it immediately. It was almost like it was being hidden. Australia is moving to rapid antigen tests every 3 days. Is daily a better idea? Well, daily is better than every 3 days, but if all you can do is every 3 days, it's better than once a week.
It's better than 0.
Is there any data on what percentage of fully vaccinated folks are getting long COVID? So someone asked this of Daniel the other day, and he said we don't have data yet. No data yet. Here you go. Les, Python Selenium WebDriver has scroll method to get past. I don't even know. The only thing I recognize is Python. It's a programming language. So help me out. Once, Les, you offered to help, so help me out. Severe COVID is due to fatal cytokine storm and autoimmune condition. It seems rational to treat early with autoimmune medication. So why doesn't it work? Because you can't. By the time people can't breathe, it's too late. And that's what usually sends them to the hospital. And you don't know who is going to develop severe COVID when it first starts. But yes, if we could know, in fact, we just discussed that paper on Tuesday's TWIV. It's going to drop at midnight. You can see signatures of long COVID, but getting it early is difficult. All right, shingles. Did you get Shingrix? I guess you did, probably. It's a great vaccine. Has the live stream started? This was a long time ago. I think that was a joke. Any reports of extended mosquito seasons due to climate change? Yes, that's correct.
I don't think it has anything to do with SARS, viral transmission and mutation, but it definitely has to do with Zika and dengue and all the other arboviruses.
All right, this one I have to write down. Duck link capture. That one I haven't heard of. Duck link capture. DUCKLINK capture. See, in this group, we help each other.
Yeah, somebody says F12 network disable clear. Let it run, save afterwards. You'll find a post in response bodies. I don't know what that means.
Say, my buddy Sanjay Gupta, a vaccinated person carries the same viral load as this is the BS that CDC is spreading. That's where he got it from. You think he learns anything himself? Sorry.
It's fine.
I don't know where the data are. From what I can tell, there's very little data supporting this viral load business, and I bet it's PCR, okay? It's not really infectious virus.
Well, so on Andy Slavitt's Bloom or whatever it's called with Eric Topol, he talked about higher load and viral and RT-PCR, and he says it's all infectious virus. It's all infectious RNA, and it's not all infectious RNA.
So why do people listen to him?
Because you have no idea.
Why do people listen to him? Come listen to us. We say the right stuff.
I was just so astonished that he said it was all infectious RNA, and it's BS. Not. You have no idea what the interfering defective particle ratio is to PFU. I was just flabbergasted. But this reminds me of a very cool paper that I started to read today about how the EXO works with NSP10 to do mechanistically to do proofreading, to pull out the nucleotide. It's very cool.
Yeah, neat.
Yeah, but it's the first mechanistic paper about this with structure and everything.
Anyway, so Genesis int 1, I don't believe those data, but that's what the CDC is using to tell vaccinated people to mask. Sorry, I'm not happy with the current CDC. I'm 70, young, fully vaxxed, invited to speak in Las Vegas inside for a week in August.
Wear a mask. Be fine. What happened in Vegas stays in Vegas. Yeah, I couldn't think of the final phrase, but yeah.
Pfizer data on a third shot seems to ignore the rest of the immune system beyond antibody levels. Amy loves you.
I do. Plus, he was also on Andy today. He's on today, and then he's doing the other half of his interview on Monday. He's releasing it. And the guy starts off talking about like how fabulous his vaccine is and blah, blah, blah. And it's like this 2-point difference in like just, month to month chunks. And then he tries to tell you why you need a booster. And it was like, did you not just hear yourself?
Okay, so this is why we're starting the incubator, so that I can build an organization that will interview people properly about scientific matters, not this nonsense.
Interview people properly.
You don't agree?
I didn't say anything. I just said, this Pfizer person, like, and then he says to you, well, I'm not a doctor. I'm not your doctor. I'm not even a legalized vet here in the States. It's like, you just keep putting your foot in your mouth further and further. Like, how much of your leg do you think you could swallow all at once? Up to your knee?
Should the millions of recovered people be grouped with unvaxxed with regards to policies? What do you think, Amy? I'm gonna throw it to you.
No. I don't think that they should be grouped with unvaxxed. They have antibodies and T cells that are virus specific. No.
I agree. Have you seen any data on what percentage of vaccinated people are getting infected? Probably all of them. It depends how far out you are from the vaccine, from the second dose. The farther you are, the more likely you're going to be infected. It doesn't prevent infection. And if it were another variant, it wouldn't prevent infection either. Vaccines do not prevent infection. They prevent disease.
Well, 90% of vaccines prevent disease.
Yeah, no vaccine is 100%, of course.
Well, HPV prevents infection.
HPV is the only one. There you go. Love the crop duster idea.
Not getting a crop duster. But
I fear you are dismissing the variant. I'm not dismissing the variant. It's SARS-CoV-2. That's very serious. But it's no different from any other variant. Okay? At least I haven't seen why it might be. Just because it spreads and displaces doesn't mean it's different from the others except in fitness. What about people that didn't make antibodies after the first and second shots, like cancer patients? Are they protected? Might they make T cells, Amy?
They could. I mean, you have to test. And unfortunately, the T cell test only does nucleocapsid, which is not in any vaccine as of the moment. But some cancer patients, like my parents, do make antibodies.
Forever maskers are undermining vaccines, telling people that even after vaccination, they still need a mask. Well, at some point we won't, but we need to get more people vaccinated, right? And that seems to be a problem.
Yeah, we've kind of hit a plateau. Okay, it's like 8:45. 3 more questions.
Perhaps if you give an example of how we get busted by other viruses, for example, I don't know what you mean busted, Renzo, I'm sorry. And do you mean 229E, the common cold corona?
I don't understand the question.
I don't know what busted means, I'm sorry. But if you restate it, I might get to it later. I don't. Pointing to antibodies fading after 3 months. Who cares if they're fading? They're supposed to fade. They're supposed to fade. This is what bothers me about these reports. They're supposed to fade, but not go away.
Well, Amy, fading and not going away are two very different things.
Yeah, they remain at a low level, right, Amy?
Yeah, but who decides what the low level is?
Me.
Okay. The omnipotent one.
What other mRNA vaccines are being developed, Amy?
I believe against flu, some cancers, some other, maybe against RSV. Yeah, I believe against RSV.
Right. And malaria, too.
Yeah. But, I'm a virus girl. I don't participate on parasite. I don't participate on TWIP.
So I'm putting this up so it's saved in the chat. Well, it's saved in the chat anyway.
Well, maybe you can find it more easily this way.
One more question. Are you good?
Yeah, one more question.
I'm not sure how saying not needing a third boost means A&V are dismissing the Delta. No, we're not. We think the vaccines are really good. Let's see. Double vaccinated people in Israel have died. It's not 100%, right? Oh, here's
Even
one.
the thing that, well, here's the thing.
Yeah.
Even the thing that this species is dependent upon is not 100%. You think something that's man-made is going to beat that?
HPV does pretty well at beating natural infection, right?
Yeah, but it's still not 100%.
It's true. Where's
I'm
Michael
just saying,
Minigan?
yeah. Somewhere far, 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 far away. Thank God. Y'all have to ask Mrna because he's the one who screwed it up by saying he had to lick a stick and not having squat. Move on.
Wasn't it around this time last year, folk were panicking about decreasing antibodies from natural infection? Rinse and repeat, I guess.
Yep.
Yep.
Yep. We don't learn.
The China study, wild-type incubation was 6, but I thought we established 4.5 days for the Delta. Yeah, but we're skeptical of that because, as Amy mentioned earlier, it's not clear that they properly traced the chain of infections. Right, Amy?
Well, it's not clear to me that they were the sole exposure, that the patient zero of each house was the sole exposure. And without it being the sole exposure, you can't really state anything, right? All right, Amy states not to continue testing, ignoring long COVID. Long COVID has nothing to do with testing. In low-risk workers, nearly 1 in 6 experience long COVID. The risk of long COVID seems substantial. Why is a COVID testing program no longer important? No, I said you don't test vaccinated people. There's no real clear data on whether or not vaccinated people who get infected do develop long COVID. So I don't know where you came up with this idea that I said don't continue testing. I said you don't test vaccinated people.
All right, one more. Why test only once a week when by then they could have spread it if Delta reproduces so quickly?
Maybe that's all you can afford, but that's the argument of why once a week is not sufficient, right? Is that it has nothing to do with whether or not Delta reproduces so quickly, but it has to do with the fact that you really, it's a snapshot, and you're assuming that once a week that everybody all gets infected on day 4 prior to that test date, and that's ludicrous, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, changing of the CO2, tailing of the PVRs, and injections, and we have to change some of the Ayacook stuff.
Amy just gave me my list of duties for tomorrow.
That's part of the list of duties.
Thank you, Amy.
All right, have a good evening.
Say goodbye to Amy, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
I'll see.
Okay. Now I will take on the difficult job of filling in for Amy. I was vaccinated back in May and recently recovered from an infection with moderate symptoms. Would I have had it worse if you were not vaccinated? Absolutely. That's what the vaccine does. It protects you against severe to fatal disease. Is my immune system stronger? Yes, that's what we think. You get vaccinated, you get mild infections, and that boosts you. That's what we think is happening. You'd expect double vaccinated people to die. You told up front the vaccines are only, right, 80 to 90%. In fact, they're not protecting everyone. That's absolutely right. Snag it. Okay, Spamlet. Thank you. I will try these things. All good suggestions. Thank you very much. If vaccinated people have symptoms, they can probably transmit. Not necessarily. Not necessarily. Why not test them? They could be around children or other vulnerable people. Should they at least know if they're infected? Yes, I think that's a valid reason if you are going to be among children. But yeah, get tested. If you're positive, you quarantine. However, I think the transmission is severely attenuated in a vaccinated person. Otherwise, herd immunity wouldn't work, right? T cells hold the blueprint. Absolutely. I'm going to show you this article, which we're going to do next Tuesday. Here, where is it? Sorry, I have to go to my Finder here, and I'm sorry. What's going on? Here we go. Rapid and stable mobilization of CD8 positive T cells by SARS-CoV-2 mRNA vaccine. So this is all about that these spike mRNA vaccines mediate protection from severe disease as early as 10 days post-prime, when neutralizing antibodies are hardly detectable. We noted this a long time ago and said it must be T cells, and this article shows that it is. They're induced very early, and the T cells are going to save us, folks. T cells are going to save us. I'm a little spicy, I'm sorry, but I spent all day in here, and I guess I needed to just let it. I'm also getting frustrated with the levels of misunderstanding that I am seeing. All right, let's see this one. Is it possible that our current vaccine will fail to protect us from the potential new strains that can arise from countries who are not vaccinated? Well, so the way these variants arise is by immune selection. So unless people are infected or vaccinated, you're not going to get that immune selection. So I'm not worried that it's going to come from a unvaccinated country. It could come from anywhere. So yeah, there could be future variants. I'm sure this virus will continue to vary. And that's why if we vaccinate more people, you get less variation. I wish people would get vaccinated. I do not understand. I know people who say, I don't trust this vaccine. I mean, millions of people have gotten it already. If I'm vaccinated and get Delta, am I immune to Delta in the future? Yeah, that's a good point. You are. That's going to attenuate Delta specifically. You'll have a nice mix of antibodies against Delta and the variant, the original strain, the original strain encoded in the vaccine. Okay. It's more than just going out recreationally in Florida. We are not allowed telehealth doctor's office options. Yeah, that's a problem. I'm sorry. Every state is an independent country here in the U.S. On a recent tweet, he spoke of daily testing of movie. He now is finding negative test to infectious CT within 24 hours. This didn't seem to be happening before. Yes, as he did say that, but that's anecdotal data, right? And we need more. If it's true, fine, I'll buy it. But as I always say here, I want the data, and I don't see it yet. I think I'm seeing this, is not good enough. Yes, Evolving Boosterism 779 is all about what a vaccine does to the previously infected. Maybe we're releasing too many TWIVs and people can't keep up with it. Should I cut them back? Because, yeah, there's some of these gems way in the past. Is it possible that more Americans are immune compromised? Oh, I don't think so. I think we know the level of immune compromised in the U.S. population doesn't exceed about 1% of the population. An MD, a clinical researcher, told me that once. You're waiting for the pi variant? Yeah, we're going to go through all the Greek letters and we'll run out. What are we going to do? Start recycling? Thank you, Ditching the Grind, for your contribution. All contributions go to supporting the incubator. Yeah, lambda, delta, omega, beta. Maybe they can combine letters. That's right. The thing is, folks, if we weren't doing any sequencing, we wouldn't have any of this. We would just be vaccinating. We'd have outbreaks, and it would be in the unvaccinated, and there would be no difference. Maybe some monoclonal therapy would fail, and they would switch. But we were talking the other day about how the sequencing is a bit of a problem because people don't know what to do with the data. Australia has only just discovered rapid testing after over a year, but it's not as sensitive as PCR arguments, which, of course, PCR is too sensitive, right? You don't need to know CTs over 34. Let's see. Can Amy explain what her preferred rapid antigen policy is? Oh, so the original idea was that you would have a lick-a-stick, an antigen test on a strip of paper, which would be very cheap, and you could use every day. You just lick it, and the viral antigens in your saliva, we know there are viruses there, would react, and you would know whether to go to work or school or not. That would be great, right? And in the case of unvaccinated people, it could govern what they do. But we don't have it. Never got made. I mean, there are antigen tests that have been made, but they're more expensive. $75 is not good enough. Thank you, Paul, for your contribution. I'm sorry if you got blocked. Sometimes it's a fine line, I trust the mods to do the right thing. I think that California, maybe federal government workers are being required to get vaxxed. It may be. My school, Columbia, requires us to be vaccinated. We can't go in. It's fine. I don't have a problem with that. I got vaccinated long before they decided to do that. Not everyone's going to do it, of course. But a lot of countries will require vaccination if you want to go to them. A lot of airlines will require vaccination. It's going to get difficult to avoid at some point. Covaxin has been submitted for WHO approval. Do you have an idea how long that generally takes? I don't know how long the WHO takes. Someone was telling me that here in the U.S., what was the number that they gave me? It was a crazy amount of time. But they actually don't start looking at the data till the very end, so they don't have to take that long. But that's just what they're used to. Yep. I'm sure not everyone is not vaccinated. I don't mean to impugn Staten Island. I just don't understand why half of the people would not be vaccinated anywhere, right? We have great vaccines that are really miracles that we had them so quickly. And I'm embarrassed that the U.S. doesn't want to fully embrace them. And part of the reasons are political, which is crazy. Find some other reason to run your politics, right? All right, look, I have nothing against epidemiologists. I will bring one on. We did have Adam Kucharski on last year, but it was before any of these variants arose. I agree. It would be a good thing to have a conversation, and it would show that I'm open-minded, right? Which I need to be a science communicator. I really should be. I do have these flaws like that. I'll bring someone on. Okay. Will any nucleoside analog antivirus ever be effective? Yeah, because of the error correction of the polymerase that Amy mentioned briefly. Yeah, I think so. I think molnupiravir works. It's harder to get them. Many other viruses where you don't have error correction, RNA viruses that is, it's much easier to find them. But molnupiravir is one, and we'll have others, yes. It's not impossible. We had molnupiravir 5 years ago. Could have been ready for this pandemic, but my daughter had J&J. Should she get a single dose? It's okay to do. Daniel Griffin says it's okay. I I think J&J is a good vaccine. The efficacy is not as high as the mRNA vaccine. If you want to have it more, yeah, get an mRNA vaccine. You should be able to get it because the J&J is only one dose, right? But I'm not sure. I'm looking for questions with, at Vinny or at Racaniello, because I know you have little chats. Will the virus at some point be capable to bypass the receptor and mainly enter the cell by pinocytosis, making vaccine irrelevant? No, the vaccine will not be irrelevant. This is a good question for explaining. First of all, I doubt it will happen. I doubt it's got a great deal in binding ACE2. Why would it throw it away to inappropriately anthropomorphize, which I don't like to do? That doesn't seem like an evolutionarily selectable property. So I don't think that's going to happen. I've never seen it happen with any virus. However, if it did get in a receptor-independent fashion, it wouldn't be very specific, actually. The T cells don't have to block attachment. They recognize virus-infected cells. So there's this conception that the only way we can stop an infection is by blocking attachment. No, actually, there are also antibodies that block after virus entry. But the T cells will recognize an infected cell, irrespective of how the virus gets in. Good question for enabling me to have a teaching moment. Coat of arms of House of Racaniello is composed of concentric circles in yellow and scorched earth. That looks more like, wait for it, a virus. Why am I scorched earth? Racaniello coat of arms. There is actually one on the internet. Here it is. I'm going to show it to you. This is not related to me. I got to move it over. Yeah. Okie dokie. No, that's the wrong window. Come on. Here we go. There is the Racaniello coat of arms. Isn't that weird? This is from an ancient Italian family, so it's not really me, but it's not concentric circles. But scorched earth, you think I'm being scorched earth tonight? I'm sorry, I don't mean to. I just sometimes get ticked off, right? Yes, it's true, Jack. Anti-vaxxers are exploiting VAERS and Vaccine Adverse Events Reporting System. And, they're using it to spread fear. Oh, look, 10,000 people have died from the vaccine. If you die after vaccination, it's reported to VAERS, but you may have died of a heart attack or a car accident or skiing, whatever. Does not the viral Delta replicate much faster? Okay, here's the story, Ian. Nobody's shown that to me. No one has shown a growth curve with infectious Delta virus. You don't even have to do it in people. You could take a respiratory cell from a human, infect it in the lab with SARS-CoV-2 Delta versus ancestral. If you show me accelerated reproduction, then I'll agree with you. That could be a reason for its better fitness. But I have to tell you, there's a paper out of Rocky Mountain Lab today looking at transmission in a hamster model. And they look at B1117, the alpha variant. And they find better transmission, but not better shedding from the upper tract. So just because it replicates better doesn't mean it's better transmission. I just want you to be careful of assumptions, which seem like logical to you. That may not be right. But that's what people tell me all the time. You can't be right about this because of this and this. Just back off and think about it a little. In the UK, you can get free lateral flows twice a week. It's great. So Condit's daughter over there gets every day a rapid antigen test because she's working on a stage production. I know a lot of people around. The preferred muscle, other than deltoid, is the vastus lateralis, outer aspect mid-thigh, generally large and relatively free of large veins. Risk of hitting sciatic nerve in the gluteus, right? So, yeah, I mean, you got to drop your pants, right? It's not happening. Not happening. It's like if you saw Contagion, that's what she did. She stuck it in her vastus lateralis. Remember Contagion? The lady's making a vaccine for this new virus. She gets one monkey protected. One monkey. So then she tests it on herself by jabbing her thigh with the syringe. And then she immediately goes to visit her sick dad and is protected. I mean, how screwed up is this whole scenario? And then the final vaccine that is approved is an intranasal spray. Hollywood, folks. All right, let's see here. Maybe a way of narrowing down possible intermediate hosts. What do you mean by intermediate hosts? Lung cells express temperus. Yes, so our lung cells have temperus at the cell surface, and they cleave the spike, enabling fusion at the cell surface, right? So what are you thinking? Looking for intermediate hosts that have temperus in their lungs? I think it's pretty ubiquitous, frankly. Yeah, I don't think that's going to help you. Bypassing the receptor. Nope, not happening. How does the virus gain access to platelets? Now, there's always a little bit of virus in the bloodstream, right? There's always a bit of a spillover from anywhere you inject it. But I agree, it's we don't have an answer for this yet. Mechanistically, we're not there. I agree with you. So we will never have a cheap lick stick. I don't think it's DOA. Amy thinks it's DOA, but it could still be developed by someone who wants to do it. I don't know if anyone's working on it. That's the thing. If it were me, I would, because this is going to continue for a while as long as we have so many unvaccinated people. I was on a call this morning from Mumbai. You know, they've vaccinated 440 million people in India, but it's less than 50%. It's amazing that they've 440 million people. We can't even get close to that here in the U.S. And that lady talking, she was great. I have to get her on Twitter. She said, here in India, we don't have problems with vaccines. I guess they have other problems, right? Would the calcium wave discussed last week on Twitter play a role in the cytokine storm? You know, it could. I'm not knowledgeable about how those calcium pathways might play into storms. The way I see storms happening is viruses are sensed. There are signal transduction pathways, which mainly involve phosphorylation, transcription factor activation, and transcription of cytokine genes. I would like to see a quick video on YouTube that explains fitness versus transmission. Yeah, I think of this all the time. I have, as I've said many times, and you're probably getting tired of it, I have a bunch of videos queued up in my head that I want to make. But, you know, Amy will get mad if I say this. I'm teaching right now. There are not enough hours in a day. But as soon as the course is over next week, then I'll get down to it. I want to make one on fitness and transmission. I want to make one about the origin of the virus. I know other people have made origin, SARS-CoV-2 origin videos, but I have a perspective that others don't have. I want to make a video on gain of function. I want to make a video on infection versus disease. All these fundamental things, 10, 15-minute videos. That's what the incubator is for. Not sure about others. I'm finding it hard to trust CDC guidance. If breakthroughs are rare, then vaccinated people transmitting the same as unvaxxed logic, causing all to wear masks not adding up. I agree. Many people agree. In fact, there was a comment right at the beginning of the chat before we went live, which is now gone. But he said, I'm very disappointed in the CDC. I agree. I think that the idea that vaccinated and unvaccinated people shed the same amount of virus, I just don't buy that. I'm sorry. If you're using PCR to tell, then you're flawed. Your data are flawed because a variant could just be throwing off more RNA that's not infectious. I've seen that happen. Come on, CDC. You can be better than that. I sat next to a vaccinated person with COVID unmasked at a restaurant. She got tested the next day, so I tested 3 times the next week, no positive. So, Bonnie, that's good. The with COVID, we know that not everyone who's infected transmits, right? Only a small fraction. 80% of the transmissions are done by 20% of the people. So the person you sat next to was simply not a transmitter. If you remember that, everyone, that not everyone who's infected is going to transmit. They probably don't have enough virus to transmit. I remember the study we did on TWIV out of Boulder, Colorado, where they mass screened students and they did PCR to quantify the amount of RNA. Most of them were very low, but a few were high levels of RNA in the nasopharynx, which could equate to a person who spreads, right? But it is PCR. So I'm taking my own criticism there. Yeah, it feels like you're getting punished for getting vaccinated in a way. Yes. Why was I picking on Amy? I wasn't picking on her. I'm the last person in the world that will pick on her. Others are picking on her. Can you get the HPV vaccine to get roof warts? The HPV vaccine is for genital warts. Does the flu vaccine not produce T cells, or is this not a major component of the response? It is a major response, actually. And because we know this, because you get a lot of damage to your respiratory epithelium during influenza, and that's why it takes you a couple of weeks to recover. And you can have a substernal pain as a consequence. So yes, T cells are important for recovery. I have a suspicion that the flu vaccines do not induce a good T cell response. And that is why, as your antibody neutralization levels wane, as new variants arise, that's why we change the vaccine based just on antibody levels, because we start to see more and more severe disease and then we change the vaccine. So that's telling me that the flu vaccine, as currently formulated, doesn't make a good T cell response. So variants of flu arise. They displace previous viruses. They are never called more transmissible by any of the flu people. Okay. My country, 43 COVID deaths since February were vaccinated. 0.2%. 33 had pre-existing conditions. 41 were 60 and older. Do you think this is due to insufficient generation of T-cell immunity? I don't know, but remember, at 0.2% is well within the range of the lack of protection that we know of for vaccine. I don't know what particular vaccine this is, but yes, I would guess it's a poor T-cell response, because that's what seems to be protecting you against severe disease, for sure. Why are they saying everyone will get Delta if exposed but unvaccinated? What happened to the 15-minute rule? So they're wrong. Everyone's not going to get Delta. There's still, there are lots of anecdotal stories of people walking past each other in hallways and getting infected. And Daniel Griffin agrees this is nonsense. So this is the problem, Bonnie. Stories start to circulate. They become legend, but it's not the science. There's just no evidence that Delta will infect you in less than 15 minutes. What about a booster? My wife got Pfizer in phase 3. It's the second Pfizer? You're fine. You don't need a booster. About to be exposed to multiple people tomorrow. I plan on booking a test Friday. You're vaxxed? You should get see what happens. You'll probably be negative. Is the current case doubling rate with society opening up the same as when SARS-2 hit the U.S. with the original? If so, variants aren't the problem, it's social behavior. So I don't think you can compare the two, right? But if you look at the growth curves, the slope is quite similar. And I agree. I think social behavior is driving all the outbreaks. And now, of course, it's unvaccinated people who are, the CDC said, take your masks off if you're vaccinated. And then everyone took their masks off and went to restaurants and so forth. And so that's why we have this outbreak. It's not variant driven. I can't stand the headlines. Delta drives this variant. Oh, boy. How do you push through such long hours at work? I love it. I absolutely love. I get absorbed and then the day's over. So it's not work, Andrew. It's a career. I never looked at it as work. I love doing science. I love doing experiments. I love training people, writing books, writing articles. Now I love podcasting and doing these live streams and teaching people. I'd love it. I absolutely love it. And most of this stuff I don't do for money, right? Fortunately, I have a job, not a job. I have a vocation that pays me as a professor, which I love to do. Love to work with people like Amy. Yeah, it's just great. It is just great. Would a fully vaccinated person gain additional memory epitopes from exposure to non-alpha variants? If a vaccine works well, new epitopes were never developed. So the variants, they have a few changes in the antibody epitopes in spike, right? And then the neutralizing antibody epitopes are only on spike. They're not on any other protein, as far as we know. Maybe some of the envelope proteins, but no one has really studied that. The T-cell epitopes are on many proteins, and they do not change for the most part in the variants. And that's why you are protected against severe disease caused by variants, because the T cells can still recognize infected cells. If it turns out these vaccines only work for 3 months, no, that's not going to turn out to be the case. Absolutely not. These vaccines will work much longer. They're not going to work for 60 years like some other vaccines do, but they will not just work for a few months. Absolutely not. Yes, I think people should be afraid of long COVID, and that's why I don't understand why people don't want to be vaccinated, because then they increase the chances of getting long COVID. Doesn't make any sense. Okay, yesterday in the Lancet, second dose AZ, no signal of TTS clouding above background. Yeah, it's only after the first dose, right? Yep. But I feel comfortable going to Las Vegas. No, I wouldn't. I never liked Las Vegas. But if it were a virus conference, fully vaxxed and masked, I'd go, sure. I don't mean to drag you to filth epidemiologists. I just think you cannot. All right, I'm going to show a slide. You cannot make predictions about the transmissibility of a virus by looking at the drive it has in the population. So let me see. The talk I gave today was to the Columbia Global Health in Mumbai. Here we go. So this was one of my slides on transmissibility. So, one virus, on average, an infected person can infect 3 people. If it's truly more transmissible, maybe on average an infected person will infect 6, but this has never been shown. To do this, you need to do field work and experimental evidence in the lab, experiments in the lab. The field work alone is not good enough. You cannot infer changes in transmissibility from shifts in population prevalence alone, and that is what has been done, mainly by epidemiologists. They don't look at it from a virological perspective, which is what has changed in the virus that would make it infect more people. First, you have to show me that it's infecting more people, and that's never been done. You know, the reproductive index is often used to calculate transmission, but it also has a human factor, and it's never taken into account. Secondary infection calculations is another way of measuring transmission. It also has a contact factor, never taken into account. That is not fair to say that transmission's increased unless you take those into account. So that's what I mean by field work, as well as experimental work. Infect the lung cell line and show me that the virus is reproducing quicker. Get some animals and show me that transmission happens quicker. You have to build a case. You can't make an observation of a variant driving through a population and telling me it's more transmissible. That's not how it works. And that's what the EPIs are doing. And then the public health people pick it up and spread it. And then the doc down the street says this is more transmissible without ever looking at the data. And I guarantee if they looked at the data, they would see that you can't make the conclusion. So that's what I'm saying. I don't mean to trash anyone. I just get a little fiery here. Paul Offit says those with natural immunity do not have to be vaccinated. Yeah, others don't share the view. That's fine. But I think if you get vaccinated, just one shot, you get an amazing boost. So it's really worth it. So I would. If I had been infected, I would get vaccinated. I don't see why you wouldn't. It's free, right? How to weigh out the risk-benefit for receiving flu vaccine for healthy adults with low risk of hospitalization. So the problem is, Lucic, is that even healthy young people can die of flu, and it's unexpected. So, you know, it's rather rare, but it can happen. And for me, I get a flu vaccine every year. I haven't had flu for over 20 years, 40 years. And that's all the data I need for me. But between 4,000 and 50,000 people die a year of flu. And, you know, they're mostly older people, but there's some young ones thrown in. So given the safety, it's cheap, I think it's a no-brainer. Can we find viable viruses in the permafrost? Yeah, we have. We have found viable viruses. Pithovirus sibericum is a giant virus that was found by taking a Siberian ice core. And Jean-Michel Claverie and Chantal Abergel in France did this. They've been on TWIV. They took an ice core, thawed it, and they threw it on amoeba in the lab, and they got a virus out. So, yeah, there are viable viruses there. Will they be able to infect humans? I don't know. Depends what was frozen there. You know, this virus is 35,000 years old. We know the age of the ice core. We don't know what's in there. I don't know if we're going to find out because you're not going to core the whole thing. You know, it depends on what was captured, what kind of animals were captured. If there were humans with viruses that are no longer around that could pose a threat, I think it's pretty minimal, frankly. It's a low probability event. Do I think cases among children will spike? Yeah, I think in the fall when kids go back to school, it will spike, yeah. I think we're going to have a big spike in the fall. And I thought we wouldn't because I assumed we would be more vaccinated than we are. And I'm actually surprised that we're not. It's really too bad. Yes, I agree. COVID sucks on many levels. It mainly sucks because it kills people. It mainly sucks because it's hijacked science. It's hijacked science journalism. It's made a lot of people do poor science. Maybe that's not the right choice of words. And I have focused on it for over a year on TWIV, almost to the exclusion of other viruses, which I don't particularly like. Now, that's kind of a selfish thing, but yeah, it does suck. And you know what? It could have been prevented. I'm 100% convinced it could have been prevented with an antiviral. Thank you, H. Zoo, for your contribution. I really appreciate it. Where's the fundraiser? He said he was coming tonight, but he didn't show up. Yeah, I'm paying him to raise funds because we're becoming a nonprofit. I think it's a good investment, and we can raise enough money so that I can hire people to work with me in the studio, and I can take a creative back seat and not have to do the tech, and I can do more videos. Wouldn't that be cool? Yeah, so that's the plan. I don't expect to be fully, invested in overnight, however. If we're fully vaccinated and get COVID, do we develop antibodies? You get a boost to your antibodies and T cells, yes. It gives you a better, rounded out immune response and better memory for sure. Let's see now. It is 2925. No, Sanjay Gupta is the CNN guy. He's okay. I stood next to him once last year before I went on CNN. And he's not often right. And then he was actually on with me and said some things I didn't agree with. But that's fine. Do you think that thanks to vaccinations, we are out of a pandemic and a series of epidemics? Well, it's technically a pandemic because it's still global, right? But in the U.S., no, even in New York, there are rising numbers because there are enough unvaccinated people in every state. So Massachusetts has the second highest vaccination rate in the country, and they have a high amount of circulation. I guess it goes through pockets of unvaccinated people, yeah. So I don't know. It's just a word, but we're going to have outbreaks for some time until we get more people vaccinated, or the virus will run through them and naturally immunize them. Yep. The hard science of vaccine development work now. Best methods to communicate those are needed. Best practices in communication are as important as the hard science. I totally agree. That's why I do this. I'm probably a little too prickly. But look, I got 540 people here tonight, me and Amy, I should say. So we're doing our little bit. Do you think inhibiting the exo? Yes, absolutely. And Mark Dennison is working on that. We should have him back. Thank you, Les. Really appreciate your contribution. You've been towing the no transmissible. I cannot anymore. There's too much evidence. No, there isn't. Parallax. Go look at it. Don't look at indirect evidence. Look at the direct evidence for increased transmission, not indirect. You'll agree. When it's there, I will go back. I will go and say it, but it's not there yet, if it ever comes. But that's fine, Parallax. You can do as you wish. I don't have a problem with that. Is there a website I can use that will show me the genetic difference between rabies? Well, it's not going to be easy to sort it out, but I can help you. Shoot me an email, Vincent@microbe.tv. I'll help you out. Financial Times analysis of global infection and fatality rates suggests a double-jabbed 80-year-old now faces about the same mortality risk as an unvaccinated 50-year-old. This is just nonsense. Financial Times, really? Do they understand the science? No. Any data on corticosteroids? So I think Daniel inhaled corticosteroids. I think he's addressed that. He said there's no effect on immune responses. The AZ never got EUA. I know. They had some disagreements in the data, and they could not resolve it, apparently. It's not a good thing. I absolutely agree with you. I hate to sound like a broken record. Am I going to be okay even if I'm vaxxed with J&J? It depends. It depends if you have any other health issues that might make a more severe disease. Because remember, the J&J efficacy is not the same. But I must say, in South Africa, the J&J 100% effective at preventing severe disease and death, even with that circulating variant. So I think you're fine. Thank you. I appreciate that you like the way we interview. Thank you, Richard. Appreciate your support. Going through quickly the chats here. It's great. You guys have a great chat amongst yourself. Will the virus become more fit if a vaccinated person is infected? Well, it doesn't become more fit. But what could happen is that the immunity could select for a virus that evades immunity. Now, we have no idea where these variants originated, but presumably they arose in someone under selection. And whether it was an infected person or vaccinated, we don't know. Thank you, R.M. Holtman. We appreciate your support. Is Luc Montagnier relevant? No. Luc Montagnier is irrelevant. I would not pay any attention to what he says. The only reason he got the Nobel for HIV is that François Barré-Sinousset in his lab isolated the virus, not him. Government wants us to believe a passerby can get a whiff of COVID and end up in hospital. I say garbage. What do you say? I say garbage. So does Daniel Griffin. Would the masking of vaccinated significantly reduce the transmission of Delta variant among unvaccinated in a so-called hotspot? Or would it have a negligible effect? I think it's a good question. You know, they're erring on the safe side. But frankly, I don't see how a vaccinated person is transmitting effectively. And so I'm not clear why they would have to mask. But then again, in April, I didn't really like the idea of unmasking because I thought everyone would unmask, and that's what in fact happened. I'm not aware of this happening, Luca. I didn't even see that it was in any. It would have to be after a phase 3, and I'm not aware of any phase 3 studies of the mRNA vaccine. I'm sorry. Can you trade some of your cousins for Amy? Sure. She would like to trade some of her family for you. He didn't really have a lick-a-stick, apparently, right? Has there ever been a virus that started mild and turned dangerous, a human virus? Certainly not SARS-CoV-2. It started dangerous, right? Ebola starts out dangerous. Influenza starts out dangerous. Nipah, Hendra, hepatitis viruses. Now, the problem is, gaming like a Pro 210, is that many of these human viruses spilled over hundreds or thousands of years ago, and we don't know what they were like. So it's possible that they started out mild and became dangerous. We'll never know, right? We have no fossils. Why do I have to copy the web page? I want the data to send to someone. I don't want to send the link because it's behind a password, right? Okay, now everyone's saying goodbye to Amy. I'm going to keep going for a while. I don't have to stop. And we'll see when people leave. How's that? I want to get to 300 likes. I don't know why. It's just a thing, okay? Let's see this one. Russ Doolittle. You know, there was a very famous scientist named Russ Doolittle. Did you know that? Or Sseldolittle. Russell Doolittle. American biochemist at the University of California, San Diego. He's currently 90 years old. I know that you are not that Russ Doolittle. Does population that was infected and asymptomatic need vaccine? Not a should question. I don't know. I don't really understand it. A population that is infected and symptomatic need of a. Oh, yeah, because. Oh, if they've recovered. No, they don't need a vaccine. The only problem is that perhaps a higher percentage of them will not be protected. We don't know the efficacy of natural infection. Although a paper just came out this week in a study of healthcare workers. What is the percentage? I think it was quite high, comparable to some of the vaccines. So, no, they don't need a vaccine. Thank you for making me think. Yeah, 98% of cases are Delta in the UK. People naively think if we did not have Delta, we would only have a fraction of cases. No, I think if we didn't have Delta, we would have the same number because the cases are in mainly unvaccinated people who are unmasking and hanging out, right? So any SARS-CoV-2, this is what I've always said, any SARS-CoV-2 would do the same thing, with the exception of the advanced fitness of Delta, which arises possibly because of antigenic evasion or maybe something else. So I think any variant would do the same thing. Of course, we can't tell. We'll never know that. The time to test that has passed. If immunity wanes, would it be smart to intentionally expose oneself to common milder pathogens? Well, I think that's hard to do. Excuse me. I think that's very hard to do and do it safely. I think if you just go through life, you're going to get infected. Go through normal life interacting with people, shaking people's hands, you're going to get little boosts to your immune system, and that's good enough. Yes, I filed the 501c3 application a number of months ago. I'm waiting for the IRS to respond. And then once we have it, then all your contributions can be tax deductible. I like spicy, but also frustrated by the norovirus-like torrents of bad info out there. I try not to give bad info. It's based on data. But if I make a mistake, I admit it. I always will correct myself. That is one thing I swear to you all. Could a diabetic who's been on prednisone for 4 months get COVID? So you should need to talk to your physician or Daniel Griffin, because I'm not a doctor, but I'm pretty sure Daniel would say you'd need to stop if you can. Coming up on 6 months since I had my second shot, what would be the harm? No harm. If you want, you can do it if they'll give it to you. Spike protein has a sequence of amino acids in common with human proteins. Yeah, it has about 4 amino acids in common, which is irrelevant. Not going to do anything. Since getting vaccinated, my cell phone reception has improved 500%. It's an obvious effect, right? Yeah, that's great. Based on changes in the genome, do we have enough data to calculate the time when spike will change enough for concern? Well, it's already changed a lot, right? What do you mean, but for concern? To completely, it's never going to evade the vaccines because the T cell epitopes don't change. They do not change. It's just the B cell epitopes. Now, let's say a variant emerges that is completely resistant to all antibodies made by all previous infections and vaccines. What would that do in someone? That's a good question. Is T cell immunity enough to protect you from dying? Here's the thing. A number of people with no B cells have been infected with COVID, and they don't have any different clinical picture than people with B cells. Why? Because they have T cells. You can take that data. Think about that. I'd like to have a live stream with Brianne. Well, we had one Friday. Friday Twiv was live streamed. Thank you, Laura, for your contribution. Really appreciate it. Is the emergence of new outbreaks in very low vaccination areas really due to lack of vaccination or behavior, given that many U.S. areas are far from population immunity? Well, if you were vaccinated, you wouldn't have the outbreak, right? So I don't really understand that question. So yes, it's always due to lack of vaccination. Oh, yes, this is another one, Eddie. CDC director said, hypothetically, we could be a few mutations away from a variant that evades vaccines. This is BS, pure BS. Ignoring T cells. T cell epitopes don't change. They're the ones that protect you against severe disease. As I just said, people without antibodies do well. Why did she say that? I do find it difficult to keep up. Okay, so I should do fewer. Sorry. Michael Mrna has all but disappeared. Yes. He has. He's not a savior, though. Oh, you don't want me to cut back? Okay, that's a no. So I have one yes and one no. Thank you, John, for your contribution. I really appreciate it. Don't make less twivs, all right? We're 2-1. Don't make less twivs. Okay. I just don't want to make sure that you guys want to have them, right? Because I'll keep doing them. 2-year-old, not till the end of the year, unfortunately. That's why I think we're going to have large outbreaks in the fall. I'm wondering why T cells are not enough to protect chickens from IBV. It's different for every virus. The contribution of T cells versus B cells is variable. And it just so happens that for SARS-CoV-2, T cells are turning out to be really important. We have 3,000 plus Delta in 4 weeks on our island. 72% adults vaccinated. No mask. Life is normal. Hospital filling up. No under 18s vaxxed. Enough for herd immunity. Well, it depends on these under 18s. If they're 10% of the population, 70 to 80%, you might be right on the edge. How about a TWIV musical with a collaboration with A Cappella Science? Yeah. You got to remind me. I would love to do that. I will definitely email them. But send me an email, Vanity, and remind me. Otherwise, I'm going to forget. Eric Feigl, ding. Okay. I'll get him on. And, I don't want to say, do you think the virus is more transmissible? I don't want to do that. I would say, what's the evidence? You weren't banned, by the way. I don't want to give anti-vaxxers oxygen because they have no valid points, right? Especially the 12 anti-vaxxers that spread most of the misinformation, right? And they get paid for it. Why would I want to do that? Mercola, the #1 anti-vaxxer. With today's technology, how have we known what factors contribute to the length of memory B cells? I mean, technology hasn't helped us there. Adjuvants help. A really good inflammatory response, which gives you a good adaptive response, is really important for memory because the early flu vaccines with no adjuvants made very poor memory. An intact germinal center and lymph nodes is also important because that's where, what do we call that process where we select for high affinity maturation occurs. Without a germinal center, no memory. So I know those two things, but there's a lot more, I'm sure. I've been considering getting a degree. You can get a degree in epidemiology. Just be aware of the things that I've said and don't follow them. I don't know the answer to Russ. Settle wants to know the claim of general expression of MHC 1 and 2 with spike. Look, I only know that in severe COVID, MHC 1 and 2 is downregulated. It's a recent study we just did on TWIV. So that's the connection I know about. You have new followers from other channels. I mentioned to listen to you in John Campbell's compound. Okay, that's good. TWIV the musical. Isn't it time to get regular licensure? Yeah, all the companies are going for regular licensure. It will happen. What's pinocytosis? It's when bits of the membrane come out. Think of like fingers coming out of a membrane and they grab the extracellular contents and then pull it back into the cell. I have a very cool picture of pinocytosis. If you just give me a minute, I will get it. It would be in the entry lecture, which would be, I believe, lecture number 5 in my virology course. No, yeah, there it is. Here's pinocytosis. I'm going to show you a picture because we have time tonight. I'm just going. Here, screen share. So entry into cells. This is phagocytosis, big particles. Pinocytosis. See a little ruffle of the plasma membrane, right? and some molecules are taken up, and then the little vesicle pinches off and goes into the cell. That's pinocytosis. Nothing like a picture. A picture is worth 1,000 words. Why does this antibody, which is a B-cell antibody depletion for MS, necessitate 12 weeks before vaccination? Because you have to let the B cells regenerate, right? This is destroying B cells. And now we're looking at the coat of arms. I wonder how far down I could get before we get all the... If I just kept staying, would there still be questions, you think? On and on? Does a greater number of viral copies produced per cell result in a greater immune response? No, not necessarily. I mean, do you mean genome copies or mRNAs? I think more cells infected would give you a greater immune response. But there's a balance. You can't kill the host, of course. You can't kill too many cells. Apparently, the study the CDC cited for their guidance on load used the vaccine not in the U.S. and no control group or compare viral loads in vaccinated and unvaccinated. They didn't use infectious virus. They used PCR. Glycans found on the spike, they're put on by the host cell after the protein is made. Gates should develop a lick stick. I agree. I don't know what they're up to. Does one spike attach to one receptor? No. 3 spikes per receptor and probably multiple trimers attached per cell. All right, so the problem with the copying is I can't copy because the window has to scroll to get all of the content, and when I highlight it, it doesn't scroll. Okay? Maybe I should try a different browser. That's true. How do we explain the huge increase in hospitalizations? Because these are all unvaccinated people. And we've taken our masks off. We're going back to normal life. Consider the human factor, please, before you blame the virus. Consider the human behavior that's driving it. Do we force people with immunity to be vaccinated? No, I don't think so. As I said before, you don't need to. It's good to get vaccinated, but you don't need to. So I would not support that. Lots of great questions and suggestions for my data problem. CDC doesn't even realize that data is singular and plural. Data are, right? Data are is plural. Long COVID in babies. I think it's a good question. I don't know. Daniel would have mentioned it, but I wouldn't be surprised to see it. What do I think of the data out of Israel stating Pfizer is less effective at blocking infections? It's irrelevant. Vaccines don't prevent infections. They prevent disease. If you look at those data, they still prevented serious to fatal disease, and that's all we care about. He didn't think you were scorched earth. He saw the coat of arms and thought the black was... Oh, okay. I was wondering about that. You want a love it job vocation. Yeah, I'm very lucky. I absolutely love it. And even the day that I leave Columbia, I'm going to be working communicating science. It's great. I love it. Thank you, Tom, for your contribution. I really appreciate it. Screen print every page, huh? Look at this. We're still at 540 people, and we're already 20 minutes over. It's cool. Colon, COVID, and babies. The people who say get vaccinated or get COVID believe COVID is here to stay. The longer it's here, the more understandable the expectation that nearly all unvaccinated will get COVID. Yeah, they will, and it will take some years, and many people will die. And meanwhile, everyone else's lives are compromised to a certain extent because we're told not to infect them and wear masks and so forth, which I'm happy to do, but I think it could be easily solved, right? Thank you, Joanne, for your contribution. Really, really appreciate it. Okay, I'll stay spicy. So spicy is a new word. I used to be grumpy. I can still get grumpy. Jack, so in this one study out of China, they saw 1,000 times higher PCR signal. Okay, so we don't know if that's infectious virus. A variant could just make a lot of broken RNA, and that could account for it. And you cannot assume that this is 1,000 times more virus and therefore better transmission. But you know what a paper like that does? I heard a pediatrician, actually someone told me this, say, this new variant is 1,000 times more transmissible because of this 1,000-fold higher PCR. That's the problem with putting these kind of data out there. Thank you, Mary, for your contribution. Really appreciate it. Thank you, Overjoyed. Really appreciate your contribution. I'd like to see a report of the people who volunteered for these. Oh, the paper just came out. Where is it? I have it right here, I believe. I close it down. Paper just came out about the long-term study on Pfizer, so you can check that out. In theory, no virus can become more dangerous. Well, I would never say never. I just have never seen it, right? So I am a historian of virology. I go by what I have seen. I've written a textbook, right? Principles of Virology. And this is where I summarize everything about viruses. I will not put in this that the virus became more transmissible during the pandemic unless I really believe it, which means I have to see the data. So a virus could become more dangerous, although here's what I think. It doesn't make sense on a selective basis for selecting for more dangerous because that doesn't help a virus transmit. But it could accidentally become more dangerous because of some other change. So I would never say never. This ancient virus to which modern virus classes is most... Well, there's a class of modern giant viruses, which are all quite similar, and this one fits in just with that phylogeny. Do you think a video on how the vaccine works would help people afraid of the vaccine to get vaccinated? I could do that, but, I would only get 100,000 views at the most. It's not enough. It's not enough. Thank you, Sean, for your contribution. I appreciate it. Can you expand on it? Could have been prevented. Well, here's what we can do. I'm going to refer you to a blog post I wrote, which was written on 30th April 2020. The SARS-CoV-2 pandemic could have been prevented. The viral outbreak could have been stopped in December had we had the foresight and financial support to develop antiviral drugs or vaccines. And I go on to say that we knew there were pandemic threats out there. It would have been easy to make a drug to inhibit the RNA polymerase. the most conserved protein among all these viruses. It would have been straightforward to make this drug. But there was no money to support this work, neither in the halls of Big Pharma or forthcoming from the underfunded NIH. So I encourage you to read that. That will answer your question. Ian, thank you so much for your contribution to the incubator. Please comment on claims that say the vaccines are only protective against some variants. AZ doesn't protect against Delta. So I'm not aware of that. The Pfizer and Moderna and J&J prevent death and severe disease against all the variants. I'd have to check on the AZ data. Would you take the vaccination for Delta prevention if you were 28 with autoimmune disease? Yeah, I would. I don't think that contraindicates it. Antivirals were never developed against SARS because no one spent the money. Yes, that was one of my points. And as you say, they could have stopped SARS-2 in Wuhan. Absolutely. Thank you, Michael, for your super chat. Really appreciate it. Thank you, Miter, for your contribution. You think that was an unfair slam against the Financial Times? Well, he's a data visualizer, but is he a science visualizer? I don't claim to be a data visualizer, so I don't comment on that when it's out of my... So I don't think it was an unfair slam at all. I don't think a Financial Times writer really gets viruses deeply enough to be saying those things. I could be wrong. Thank you, Andrew, for your contribution. And Ian, thank you so much. And Rob, thank you as well. People are still here. How long would you stay? I just kept staying. Are we ever close to developing something like HART, highly active antiretroviral therapy? No, not even close. We have maybe one antiviral in the pipeline. One. Molnupiravir. We need 3. That's the problem. If we have one, we're going to get resistance to it. We got over 300 likes, so I guess I should stop now, right? Yeah, okay. If you don't get to this, I understand. No, I don't have health issues, maybe overweight, but exercising, just scared. T cells, let's go. I wouldn't be scared. I remember your question. I think you're okay. What does the proofreading capability of SARS have to do when it comes to vaccines and resistance? Maybe there'd be more variants if there weren't a proofreading function, but then the genome would be smaller. It really is all about the mutation rate. And so the proofreading capability keeps it low. And if we could target that with a drug, it would be a good antiviral drug. Yes, so thank you for explaining. The contributions are funding a Midtown studio, which is about to be open. I just got internet in, and I'm waiting for what? I'm waiting for them to put decent locks on the door because I don't want to put equipment in without good locks. If there is vaccine evasion in Delta, is there a chance it has to do with UK approach of one shot? No, I don't think so. I think it was fine to wait a bit there. I don't think that was any problem. We're realizing now that more time gives the immune response better time to evolve. I think I got your neuro joke, Ralph. I appreciate it. Thank you, Christopher, for your contributions. Why did they use spike? Because they decided that would be a quick one, right? Just one protein, mRNA-based or vectored, plus you make antibodies against the spike, they're going to block attachment to the cell, right? So that's going to block infection. The weakness is that it puts a lot of pressure on the spike, and that's why we're getting variants. What saved us have been T cells. The T cell epitopes haven't changed, and there are enough of them in spike to protect us. But I think second generation vaccines should have more T-cell epitopes. Absolutely. Thank you, Russ, for your contribution. Not 90, but Cali Doolittles are related. California Doolittles. I know. Cells. I haven't looked at that literature. I'd have to take a look at it. You could add the thumbs down to the 328. Yeah. You bet. Hour-long TWIV. That was with Daniel. Yeah. With Daniel, I know to be right on time. Right. I was lucky he gave me an extra session because he's doing one Thursday again. So that was nice. Do you like an hour? You think one TWIV a week would be good? But a lot of people seem to like them. More immune depends on the other hosts, right? Don't make less TWIVs. A lot of people love it. Oh, look at all these comments. Does taking Tylenol affect antibodies? According to Daniel, no. You like the non-COVID episodes? Yes, I do too. I'll keep listening and watching as long as you keep making. I hope you all stick around, that's all. That would be great. But if you don't, say hello sometime. And when you're in New York, stop by the incubator. Can you do a prehistoric TWIV? Yeah, we'll do an ancient virus TWIV one of these days. Absolutely. No, I don't think there's antibodies to influenza virus in honey. There may be antibodies to bee viruses, though. No, bees don't make antibodies, right? No, they don't have protein-based immunity. Sorry, Ralph. I'm too serious. No, Tylenol is fine, according to Daniel. All right, so back to Christian. Low vaccination is an indicator of behavior of concern, but it's actually things like not wearing masks, large gatherings. Yes, but I don't think that's even if you wear masks and don't have gatherings, it's not enough to stop infection. The virus will still squeak through, whereas vaccination is a better block. Maybe that's a better explanation. I am not vaccinated, been exposed 16 times and tested negative. How do you know you were exposed 16 times? You can't be sure about that. That's the problem. Why is TWIM not on YouTube? Because the hosts don't want to, two of the hosts don't want to be on TV. More Vincent and Amy. I have to say, and Amy knows this too, I get, every time Amy does a TWIV, I get people saying they don't like her. And I said, just deal with it because most people like her. So here, Jim, this is one thing. I wish I could make more response videos to the news, right? Say a report comes out on Monday. Tuesday, I drop a video saying why this is wrong. I wish I could do that. That's one of the reasons to make the incubator, where I can just stay there and do that every day. And I have a few people helping me. Let's knock this off. Turn on the cameras, do it, edit, drop. That's my dream. I hope it works. Thank you for your contribution, AB. Was the CDC ever good? Yeah. Listen to the Laurie Garrett episode. Back in the day when it was full of epidemiologists who did gumshoe detective work, it was really good. But she said they got rid of all the public health people, and now it's not so good. Yeah, she totally agrees that the CDC was way better in the past. Thank you, Laura, for your contribution. Really appreciate it. Antivirals are just one in the pipeline, which should come out. I think it's in phase 3, and we should hear about it any day now. But I'm sorry, he wasn't a serious recommendation. So Osterholm won't come on. I've asked him. He said no because we had an argument years ago. Lipsitch is not going to be invited because I have a huge disagreement with him about his anti-gain of function stance. He's completely unreasonable. Kucharski and the others, I don't know. I'll have to look them up. I usually think of Pinot Noir to recall pinocytosis. Frank is leaving. Thank you, Frank. He's gone probably already a while ago. Thank you for moderating again. Self-amplifying RNA. It's less mRNA, but I don't think the mRNA quantity is an issue. So I don't know if that's something that needs to be fixed. All right, we went to 10 o'clock. That's pretty cool. Spicy t-shirts. That's a good idea. A lot of good suggestions for my text problems. I'll go look at it in the coming days. What's the difference between post-viral syndrome and long COVID? I think they have similarities and differences. So long COVID is a unique entity. Post-viral syndrome, a similar idea. You have a viral infection and then you never quite recover. There are probably different causes, but some things similar for sure. Yes, absolutely. I could join Viridi. I do want to make a Microbe TV Discord, though, where I have everyone who's listening to our pods can go there to ask questions, and maybe the hosts of all the shows can go there. I'd love to do that. You're playing chicken, see who leaves first. We still have 531. Hardly anyone is left. I know. I'm sorry about the throat clearing. What do you want me to do? It's got scratchiness. I know I should mute myself. I forget. New variant shows common cold symptoms. So one of the problems with that is that it's a different age group of people who are being infected. And so they always have different symptoms. So you can't say it shows different symptoms. So then again, it's a flaw in not looking at the data properly. Two-hour live stream is dope. Steph, since when do you say dope? It's fine. It's just, I don't know. Would the AC make me cough? It's just that after I talk for a while, although sometimes at the beginning of a lecture, I get congested and then it goes away. But today I've given an hour and a half lecture. I gave a talk to Mumbai for about 20 minutes. I did something else and then this. So I've been doing a lot of talking today. Yeah, it may be that Marek's herpes virus has become more virulent. I have looked at those data, and I think they're not conclusive, but they certainly are suggestive. So I always restrict myself to human viruses when I say this. No human virus has ever become more virulent, as far as we know. Remember, in ancient times it might have, but yeah, animals, yeah, could be. Thanks, Jack, for your contribution. Really appreciate it. And H. thank you so much. I'm trained in epidemiology and human genetics. Excellent. I like it. Did you say viruses rarely mutate to become more lethal and infectious? In what way is this COVID like other viruses? I don't know what you mean by that. It hasn't become more virulent or infectious as far as I know. Oh, what about the study linking measles, mumps, rubella vaccine with COVID immunity? Yeah, so there were some studies which suggested that if you had an attenuated vaccine, an infectious, so replication competent vaccine, before it might protect you against COVID. And I actually told people, go get MMR vaccine last year. It won't hurt. We don't know why. It may be giving you a general boost to your immune system. I had a guy on, Konstantin Chumakov from the FDA, whose mother in the Soviet Union many years ago showed that oral polio vaccine could prevent influenza and other respiratory infections. And he wanted to do a clinical trial to test that for COVID. He never got it funded. But there might be something to it. It could be that, and it only lasts a few months, right? It's not a long-term thing. But it gives you a boost, and maybe there's some general boost to innate immunity or intrinsic immunity. I don't know what it is. The more I look into the Wuhan Institute and they do, the more I think we need more surveillance. No, actually, they don't. There are other labs that do worse, not worse, but do more involved work in terms of gain of function than they do. I think they just do mostly screening work, and it's not really that dangerous. China has prevented the spread of SARS in the country, so the pandemic could have been prevented even without antivirals or vaccines. I don't know why you say that. You mean if we had locked down like China did? Sure, but the rest of the world wasn't going to do that. So what's second best is an antiviral. Yeah. Let's start a Twivathon once a month. What is that, like going along on this thing? As long as my yarn holds out. As long as my yarn holds out, right? My yarn. I'm the yarner. Next time you talk to Bezos, ask for a few billion to make antivirals. Well, I don't do antivirals. Well, Amy does, but that's Amy's project. And Bezos wouldn't talk to me anyway. Funny, I feel like I know you. It's cool. Oh, I see. Get some tea. That would do it. Well, the throat is good now, right? Actually, what would be good would be a little glass of Barolo, right? But I don't have any down here. The nights I do, so every night at dinner I have a glass of red wine. And the nights I do the live stream, I don't, because I don't want to impinge upon any of my mental facilities. But afterwards, I will. Anthony, concerning viruses increasing in variants. Paul Ewald gives conditions that he speculates will be conducive. Absolutely. I have his book. Here it is. Evolution of Infectious Disease. Yeah, he speculates on how it could happen, but as I said, I haven't seen it happen yet. Is there any research saying that if people who get infected despite vaccination experience long COVID? Not yet. Daniel mentioned that. And he said he's waiting for the data, for sure. I hope that COVID goes away so you can see how many of us will stick around. Actually, I hope it goes away, period, right? It will go away. There's no doubt about it. It's just a matter of when. I really thought by the fall, but not enough vaccination, and the rest of the world is a big issue, right? Only good thing about the pandemic, more TWIVs. Yeah, we did make a lot more, didn't we? Will AlphaFold technology change the field of virology? Many of the structures are not viruses in AlphaFold, as far as I know. So, not yet, but it could. It definitely could. Today we had 239 cases from 110,000 PCR tests. We had a lockdown, school closes, can't travel more than 5 kilometers. This would last for another month. So it must be all unvaccinated people. Thoughts? Please get vaccinated. Vincent, I would think a killed virus vaccine would provide wider variety of targets. Yes, of course they would, because the killed virus, the inactivated virus, has many other proteins. Not antibody targets necessarily, but T-cell targets. The downside is it's kind of a crude vaccine. It's old school, which doesn't mean it's bad, but we can do better. So an mRNA vaccine, the ones we have are one protein. So the next we could do multiple proteins with multiple mRNAs and have the same effect as an inactivated vaccine. So that is what I think we're going to do. 99% vaccinated is the solution. Yep. I did not graduate kindergarten, so I need more TWIV. I didn't know you graduated from kindergarten. You want to talk about picornaviruses? That's Amy's thing now. We can get her to talk about enteroviruses that cause acute flaccid myelitis. Is the U.S. developing anything like the Israeli nasal spray? I don't know offhand. I'm not sure. I'm not convinced that this is of great value anyway. Ask Frank to unblock the many he has blocked. Well, they're only blocked for my channel. And I'm not sure they care, right? Maybe some of them do. Some of these 3:05 here, 3:05 a.m. All right, we're going to wrap it up soon because we're almost at the end of the list. So how are things going in India? I was on a very interesting call with Columbia Global Health Centers, Mumbai. So apparently Columbia has multiple such centers throughout the world. So as I said, the big outbreak has gone way, way down. You want to see it? This is what I showed them today. So this was the India outbreak that just happened. Look at that. These are confirmed COVID every 2 weeks. And now they're down here with everybody else. You know, they're not going up right now. They have immunized almost half of their population. So it's pretty damn good, as they told me on the call. They don't have a problem with vaccines. So I object to this Nature article, why Delta is so dangerous. SARS-CoV-2 is dangerous. No particular variant is dangerous. Sorry, I just don't get it. Yeah, we had our 1 hour TWIV tonight while everyone, and now she's gone, yep. Would I talk to Jon Stewart? Yeah, but he won't talk to me. He will not talk to me. Right. What is my stance on Ivermectin? Let him go forward. I think we need a 4,000 person randomized controlled clinical trial, which I think is underway. Tetanus booster wouldn't work because it's not an infectious vaccine. You need to have a non-infectious vaccine. An infectious vaccine. The tetanus booster is just a non-infectious protein, so it wouldn't work. Well, we can't say that India has gone down because of ivermectin. It's gone down because they reached a certain level of population immunity and they implemented procedures and they've immunized almost half the population. So, Corey, you can test ivermectin. It's not a problem, but don't say it solved any problems until you know. Have I posted a reading list? I know I promised that. I'll write it down here. Duck link, reading list on blog. I will do that. And that's the last question. There's actually more. It's funny. There's more in the actual YouTube thingy, but just a few more. All right, folks. I really appreciate you sticking around for 2 hours and 18 minutes. And there's still 523 of you. So only 20 or so people left. I'm very impressed. You guys are troopers. 523 of you. Great questions. Come back next time. Next week I'll be here. And maybe I'll stick around for 3 hours next week. Who knows? I enjoy talking to you. Have a great week. And, of course, as always, be safe.